there, my name is Connor Robertson. I'm one of the librarians at the Charlotte Hall Library, and today we are going to be exploring the Three-Notch Trail right next to the library. And here we have with us...
Hi, I'm Mariah Dean. I'm the Master Gardener Coordinator for St. Mary's County. I work with the University of Maryland Extension.
Hi everyone, my name is Bob Stewart. I grew up loving plants and was lucky enough to teach horticulture at the University of Maryland for 30 years. Now I'm retired and guess what? I'm still loving plants. This is a majestic white oak, and they're wonderful trees, and of course the champion, if you ever had a chance to go to the Eastern Shore and see the Y oak, it was the biggest white oak in the United States. Unfortunately, a thunderstorm took it down, but this is the state tree of Maryland.
Well, these have a lot of ecological value. Some people say if you want to plant a tree for your grandkids, plant an oak, because they support hundreds of species of caterpillars, which therefore support birds, which therefore support everything. So they're really good ecological value. They also have acorns, which birds eat, and everything else. They're really good.
Crepe Myrtle. This has become a favorite flowering tree of southern Maryland. The crepe myrtles have, when you look at the ornamental features, flower is great on crepe myrtles, and the form is great, but the bark is outstanding. And this one has what we call exfoliating bark, where the outer layers peel off, revealing often a different color inside, so you have this multiple color effect on the bark. The bark is usually very smooth and very attractive. So I encourage people, if they have one, to actually limb it up when it's young, get the limbs off the bottom so that the bark can be seen. The flowers are great, but they last only about a month. The bark's there all the time, forever. I mean, the bark is a really nice feature to play up on the crepe myrtles. And they're very common throughout southern Maryland. I mean, everybody gets a crepe myrtle pretty much. Cherries have a typical leaf. This is the leaf blade, and it has a little attachment stem to the branch called a petiole. Okay? Cherries always have, at the base of the leaf and the beginning of the petiole, they have two glands. Called petiolar glands. You can see them as little bumps. All cherries have that, and no other plants have that. If you can, if you're not sure if it's a cherry and you can find those glands, it's a cherry. Now I've seen some glands that are as big as a pea, but most of them are small. There's another tree over here. This is an ornamental cherry, and right at the top of that petiole, you can see the two glands sticking out. So that's part of identification, along with the fact that on the cherry leaf, it has what we call a serrated margin. And you can recognize that from a distance even sometimes. But other plants have the serrated margin, so if you see a leaf that you think is a cherry, look for those glands. If you find the glands, then you've got a cherry. That's wild cherry, black cherry, wild cherry.
So is there like a process that you go through on like where would someone start with identifying, like just learning leaf shapes, or like how did you identify that as black cherry? Like,
I looked really quick. I saw the shape of the leaf, which I kind of know, and I looked again. Remember, we talked about cherries, although it's not very noticeable, is the serration along the edge, which is there. It's sometimes hard to see. The black cherry is one of the few that the glands are really so small and so hard to see. They have them, but they're almost, you really have to look with a hand lens.
What's going on here?
That's a gall.
What does that mean?
That means there's a little teeny fly that comes and lays its eggs, and I mean a little teeny fly, lays its eggs in the leaf surface, and then it forces the leaf to grow an abnormal tissue. And inside is the larvae of the fly developing, and eventually this will dry and break open, and the little flies will then come out. There's all kinds of galls. Some are caused by fungi, but most are caused by small insects.
What is this?
Multiflora Rose.
They got like these really small roses.
They smell good.
They do, and they're kind of pretty, honestly. Like, they're usually light pink, but they spread so much, and the roots go down like 20 feet. So it's one of those weeds that you pull and you pull and you pull and you pull. I don't like them, and it's thorny.
And it's interesting that you can. I went here because it's the one plant that can actually outdo the poison. Poison ivy's trying,
Yeah.
but the Multiflora Rose is just too fast for it.
So how can you identify this one?
Well, you know, I don't know. To most people, it actually looks like a rose. It has the typical rose leaf, including the spines or thorns on it. And roses, the spines come directly from the epidermal tissue, so they're prickles. So cactus have spines. Black locust and other plants have thorns, and roses have prickles, botanically.
Cool.
That is a calorie pear. And you can see fruit on that one, I think. I see some fruit.
Yeah. I'm just gonna...
They do not form edible pears. I mean, the fruit is very small, marble size.
How do you identify this one?
Glossy leaves. They're simple leaves. They're not compound.
The shape of the tree is another really beautiful.
And the story goes is that back in the early 1960s, seeds were brought from China about a flowering pear that had outstanding characteristics. It grew fast. It flowered nicely. The fruit was colorful. It didn't get any insect or disease problems that people knew of, and it seemed to grow in any soil. And the United States government, USDA, grew them for a while, was satisfied it was a great plant, and turned them loose in the economy, in the nursery industry, and so was born a pear, the Bradford pear. Okay. Now, the Bradford pear had all those qualities, plus it had another really good one. It would not cross-pollinate with other pears, regular pears. So even though it produced fruit, it produced no seeds. So it was kind of confined to itself. But it had one problem in the landscape that ended up turning things around, and that is it had a very poor branch structure. The branches tended to go upright in a V shape, and when a branch does that, it's weak. A horizontal branch or a perpendicular branch is strong, but when they go up at an angle, they're weak. And so after a Bradford pear got about 15 or 20 years old, in which case they were beautiful trees, they started to fall apart. The branches started to break off, fall down, and it created a huge problem. Now, they were selling so well that the nursery industry didn't want to lose them. So what they decided to do was to find some other pears that had come from China, cross-pollinate them with the Bradford to make a tree with a better branch structure. And so some new pears came out. There was one called Chanticleer, one called, I think, Capital Pear. And so these had better limbs. They still had nice flowers, but they had better limbs, and so they began selling those. One thing they didn't test for and they didn't realize was going to happen was that the flowers of those new hybrids cross-pollinated with the Bradford. And now the Bradford produced fruit. The birds loved the fruit. The birds took the fruit everywhere and dropped it. The seeds were everywhere. And now this pear, which is not a Bradford anymore, it's a hybrid pear, is just a huge problem as an invasive tree. It grows everywhere. It takes over areas. And even though it still can be a very beautiful tree, it has become really a thorn in the side of a lot of natural people, conservation people, because you find it along all the roadsides. It takes over and pushes out other trees, and so now it's a pariah where it once had a had a great future as a landscape tree. So that's one of the seedlings that has been deposited by birds right there. You can't allow them to get tall. If they get within 15 or 20 feet of those power lines, they can short them out. So somebody's going to have to come along and cut these all out. If you look right there, you see the oak leaves? How come? You see the oak?
Yeah.
And what looks like another tree? Wait, that's poison ivy.
Okay.
Poison ivy has 3 leaflets, and when it comes out, it's very shiny.
Yeah.
And the watchword on poison ivy, if it even kind of looks like poison ivy, stay away from it. You really don't want it. And we'll see probably some Virginia creeper today, which is often confused with it.
Yeah.
But it has 5 leaflets.
Okay.
Poison ivy has 3. And it's a vine, but what it'll do is it'll hijack a tree and grow up. And so it looks like, in this case, that is part of some tree.
Yeah, I didn't realize they could be that woody, like branches.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we'll see, there's some down the path a little further where you can see the stems. They're huge. That's all poison ivy you're looking at.
Yeah. Wow.
So if somebody didn't recognize poison ivy and they had a tree like this in their backyard and they decided to come out and start ripping the vines off, not a good idea.
All right. So here is the Virginia creeper with the 5. But then right next to it is all this poison ivy with the 3. This is still poison ivy?
Yeah.
No way, that looks completely different. Wow. Oh. I saw like the fruit on it.
You might want to. The vine is really hairy. That's a good example of the
Yeah.
Yeah,
vine.
yeah. They're just neat trees. They can grow anywhere. They can take abuse and all, but they get big. The foliage stinks. People just have learned not to like them. I kind of like them, actually. I give them credit for being such tough survivors. Yeah. And again, it's not a very nice looking one here because it's again in the shade, but it's a survivor tree, and was the impetus for the book. Tree grows in Brooklyn. So this is a compound leaf, but you can see it has a lot more leaflets.
And that's tree heaven?
Yeah. Rub your finger on a leaf and smell your finger. See what you think.
Oh
It's
man.
like burning rubber.
Oh gosh.
Is that what it smells like to you, burning rubber?
Yeah.
Let me tell you a minute about how you can tell that's a single leaf and not not a single leaf. When the leaf is attached to the tree, we looked at the cherries at the base where the leaf goes into the tree. This is the petiole. Woody plants produce a bud. You can't, I ripped it off so you can't see it. They produce a bud right at that axil where the leaf goes into the tree. If you see what they call an adventitious bud right where this is hooked to the main branch, that would be a leaf. But when you start to look at these, none of these have that bud, and so these are not true leaves. These are all leaflets. This is the true leaf. This is where the adventitious bud would be. You won't see the buds there in those little creases. So, yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our exploration of the 3 Knots Trail. If you're looking for more information, be sure to check out our collection of plant identification books here at the St. Mary's Library.
And we'll also be doing some virtual Ask a Master Gardener plant clinics soon. So if you have any questions, come to those. They'll be on the library's calendar of events. The next one is going to be May 22nd from 11 to 1 p.m. We're also hoping to do some more in June, July, and August. So keep checking your calendar. We'll probably do some later in September and October as well. Master Gardeners are a great resource in your community. And we also wanted to thank Bob Stewart for joining us today. He gave us so much information, taught us so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I enjoy being with everyone, and I urge everyone to take a little time in your life and get out and look at plants, whether it's in a park or a nature area, or even so, you work hard in the yards, go out and enjoy your yard and take a walk there too.